Well, this is my first session. This will be the first few, if I can get it right here. This is the first few of the community talk. I'm coming to you out of my den. I thought this was a necessary project I'm endeavoring here. I'm hoping for success because there needs to be some things done in our community. There needs to be some reckoning in our community. I look at our children, and let's start with the children, the educating of our children, the laws that are governing us and our children, and the businesses that are generating revenue in the communities, but it seems that those businesses do not contribute to the community that they're generating revenue from. Excuse me. There is far too many of our communities that are not participating in these kind of community affairs. I'm seeing too that there are diverse groups that are working in our communities. And first of all, let me just say that the community that I'm speaking of is black. I am black, so therefore I am talking about the black community. It's time to wake up, folks. There's far too much looseness. When I say that, I mean the drug habits, the drug dealing, the crime wave, the black on black crime, our children being manipulated and just malused throughout the community, and the majority of that is us doing it to us. Wake up, people, come on. We need to stop doing this. It seems that the dream that Dr. King had has dissipated. We've forgotten what he talked about, what he taught, what he preached, the words that he spoke. Those were meaningful words. They weren't just air coming through a lung, through a larynx, and out of a mouth. They had value. They still have value. But we're not obtaining the value from them. We're exploiting those words to our, individual benefit, to a point where once it works for me, I lose integrity. For instance, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech doesn't entail that you could go out and say every four-letter word that you feel you're free to do because you have freedom of speech. It seems that in our community, our children are being taught just that. You can say anything you want. It's a free country. We have rights. That's not what it means. Please be thou not misled. What it means is, when you have an individual business come into your community and they're drawing revenue from the community, but they're not placing any revenue back, and what that means is, are they contributing to the parks? Are they contributing to the schools? Are they contributing to the kids clubs, the boys and girls clubs for the community? This is contribution back to the community by which they are living and thriving on and in. That's freedom of speech. Speak on those issues. Freedom to act is not so that you can wear your pants at your knees and show your underwear and proclaim yourself a man because you do it. Or a woman. I see women do the same thing in our community. And these are young people, some of them even older people. Unbelievable. Understand, this is not a criticism of the community. This is a awakening call to the community. We need cooperation to put back the integrity that our forefathers had. Those who came from slavery, those who actually lived in a dream, and not for themselves, but for us, the ones who now are living the dream. We're living the dream, and the dream is not so that I can go sell drugs on the next corner. The dream is not so that I can be a big shot in the eyes of someone who really doesn't matter. The dream is not so that I can use four-letter words freely in front of older people or in front of children. The dream is not so that I might be a hoodlum, a robber, a drug dealer, a drug user. That's not the expression of freedom. The expression of freedom comes when one exercises the right to question a business that comes into the neighborhood or to the community where I live, gather funds, and that's okay, they can gather their funds, but it's not redistributed amongst the people that it's gathered from. So that's an insult. We've been taught that being insulted is okay. How can that be, people? We need to exercise true freedom of speech. We need to get involved with what goes on in our communities. And I'm not talking about just where I live. I'm talking about the whole country, the whole United States. Everywhere that there are black people in this country, these conditions exist. The ideal that an individual can go into certain black communities, set up shop, generate all kinds of revenue for themselves, and contribute nothing to that community. So it's like a leech getting onto a helpless baby and sucking it dry and no one there to help. We need to help our babies in our community. So it is by far time for us to get involved, and I don't just mean those of us who think like me, those of us who have been successful as I have been successful in working for a living and not having to dodge and duck and scheme and shuck and hustle people, and namely my own people. We've been taught to put upon one another and to prey on one another. That means we rob one another, we steal from one another, we hurt one another, we are envious and jealous of one another to the point that we put one another down because we don't like the fact that one's got $1 more. There's a fellow named Lynch who indoctrinated a way of life for the black community some years ago during the slavery movement. And believe it or not, folk, we are still living the Lynch lifestyle. We have to get back to having integrity. At one point in the black community, we had great integrity. But the laws, those laws that are generated through lawmakers and law enforcers, they're generated with a specific goal. And that goal is to hamper, to entice, and to encourage the behavior that we're all exhibiting. We play right into the lawmakers' hands because all of the laws that are generated by the standard that we live. So therefore, the laws won't fit other community criteria. But when you look at them, basically, it all wraps around the black community. All laws wrap around the black community. They have a flavor of it's for everybody. That there's a flavor that it's for everybody. But when you look at enforcement, and when you look at who's running the show, and this is where we see the differences. Yeah, I'm doing this from my den, and it was just something that I live in a community where these things take place, and it occurs more frequently than I care to mention. But it bothers me because my babies live here, and when I see what I see, and I think about my babies, and I think about others like me with the same concerns that I have, I can't understand why all of us are not concerned about what goes on in our own communities. It's time that we step up, people. Young men, young women, wearing their pants sagging on their bottom to show their underwear, believing that this gives them some sort of dignity. But it's an indignant thing. And it's something that was generated to degrade this community. We are lacking in understanding, and for some reason the resources have not reached us to give us the understanding, thereby giving credence to the cliche. We're torn apart, we're destroyed by lack of knowledge. We are being destroyed. Our lack of knowledge, our inability to maintain an integral life. The fast buck has hit us, and we believe that it is true. There is no such thing. If you really want to accomplish something in life, you have to put your foot to the ground, hit the ground running in a direction that is going to be beneficial in the long run. You cannot overnight achieve the achievable. There's no such thing. And while there are those who have been blessed enough to become a star overnight, but it wasn't through the objective of some of the sights that we see in our community, some of the activities that we see in our community. It was the fact that we're all gifted. And if we apply the gift that God gave us, we can also be an overnight accomplisher. But in most cases, it takes time to accomplish what is needed in our lives. But we've gotten so indoctrinated with this quick buck, this fast money. We need it now. No, I know that it's hard for someone to say that going out looking for a job for 3 months, not being able to find work, in the meantime you got to live, so you got to do something. If our communities got together and did what was necessary for each of the communities that we live in, there's more money than you can imagine just in your community alone, with the programs and with the people of integrity that are in charge of those programs. I grant you, you've got a lot of people in places that do not belong there. And we fight with these prejudices, even from within the ranks. We have black prejudice as well as white prejudice. But the way around all of that is to build our integrity in our children, educate our children, not allow our children to go on thinking and living the lie of someone like Lynch, who has pitted us against one another in methodologies that you just wouldn't believe. You have to know that it's been indoctrinated in us from 200 years, and we're still living under that indoctrination. We are pitted against one another in jealousies, innu. It's lots of picayune things that some of it makes no sense. We even have superstitions that interfere with our livelihoods because we've been indoctrinated with them. It's been inputted into us to believe and to associate living with that, to associate being successful with that. But being successful has nothing to do with any of that. Being successful is integral. It's an integral objective that you must have to be successful. You cannot continue to operate in the fashion in which we're operating in our communities. And this is all across this great country of America. Some of you will question the fact that I said it's great. Well, it is great. It is a great country because there are countries that have a lot worse off conditions than some of our communities do. But in a country that is so well founded, in a country that does have as much freedom as we need, it is not a fact that it has the freedom. It is most definitely the way that we use our freedom. And we are not using our freedom to the full benefit of our needs. It's hurting us, America, and Black America in particular. We had a great thing happen 8 years ago, 7 years, 8 years ago, when Barack Obama became the first black man to sit in the Oval Office of what is quoted as the most powerful country on the planet. There was a missed opportunity when this man took that office. This country failed the test. The black community went out and celebrated. Yeah, my man. But we did nothing different the next morning. We are still trying to get in the habit of selling drugs. We're still trying to get in the habit of swindling. We're still in the habit of hustling. We're still in the habit of taking what is not ours. We're still in the habit of stealing and creating mayhem. We're still in the habit of non-education, prolific in non-education. We're still in the habit of not being responsible for our children. We're still in the habit of not being responsible adults. And so by example, our children don't have to be responsible if they see that we're not responsible. This is where we are. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King talked about a dream. I think we've lost sight of what he talked about, what he intended it to be, what he intended it to mean. We are by far the strongest people that's ever lived on the planet. We have endured not unlike the Israelites during the days of the Egyptian incarceration. They were pitted against all odds to be forever enslaved. I think we've been down that road. We have a history as well as the Israelites in slavery. We need to know that drug selling, prostitution, stealing, swindling, scamming, all of this is yet slavery. This is what I talk about when I speak of the laws which governs us. Those laws govern us because we do those exact things. And the laws are geared around those exact things. You don't have laws against some of the white-collar crimes that take place. And we call them white-collar crimes because these are crimes that go unmentioned or hardly ever heard of until it ticks off one of the big guys who really lost a big bundle, and now they talk about him in the news and we hear this. But this, as we talk about the black community, whereby we have our children standing on the corner selling drugs on a daily basis, and we have laws that govern that, yet the law doesn't stop this activity until there's the right complaint. And then the law gets involved and shows up for a moment, beams for a moment, and then it gets dim again. We always liken it to the light comes on, the roaches scatter, and then the light goes off, the roaches come back. It's time to change America. This will be the first of, I hope, what will be many broadcasts about our communities. In the future, I hope to bring photos to show some of the conditions of how we live and what a stranger sees when they come upon our community, as opposed to other communities in this country whereby these things don't occur on a frequent basis, and we, with our way of life, keep creating and allowing these conditions to exist. I'm hoping that I can shed some light on many souls that will be able to start affecting changes in our community so that we can get our integrity back and put some pride in where we live, what we do, and who we do it with. That is to say, how we do business and how we allow people to do business in our communities. It's time to get on track with this. We are not supposed to live in the manner that we're living. So hopefully this will reach the right ears. We will get something generated, and our young men and women will pull their pants up, put on a belt, and go out into the world and practice their new integrity. This is Community Affairs. Thank you. See you next week.